Good evening, everyone. So, this is a little bit of a different video than normal. I just figured, number one, people seem to like some of the fight footage. So, the background for this is a fight against a 4-star tempered Mizutsune. I haven't had a 5-star one pop up yet, but I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference if my comparison of the different Arkveld fights was anything to go by. But I thought we would take a minute and actually talk about difficulty. So, a common complaint that was seen before the first title update was that the game was way too easy. And then after the title update, you're starting to see just waves of people complaining about karting all the time. And there's actually layers to this that I think get left out of a lot of the online discussions about the issue. So, first of all, what do I personally think about the difficulty of the game? I think it's exactly where it needs to be. I don't think it's too easy. I don't think it's too hard. There's a lot of people that this is their first experience going through a Monster Hunter that's only high rank from the beginning, and they don't understand that it just gradually layers in, and it gets to where we have more and more and more difficult monsters. The real test for how hard the game is sort of going to cap out on difficulty will be next week, I think it is, when we get Arc-Tempered Raydao. I don't think we're going to end up getting anything in that's going to be substantially harder than what the Arc-Tempered monsters are going to be. But I do think each successive one is probably going to be just slightly more difficult than the last. So with them capping out with an Arc-Tempered Arkveld, probably. Although personally, I think it'd be really cool if they had a tempered or Arc-Tempered version of Zoshia. Now, the baseline difficulty of the game is pretty easy if you have any level of experience. If you're completely brand new to the series, it might not be that bad. Like, you might be sitting around thinking, God, why are all these people talking about how easy this game is? This is definitely a challenge to me. But don't fret. One of the reasons why there's so many people complaining about the difficulty is the first Monster Hunter game you play is always the hardest. Every successive game after that, you're not having to master the systems anymore. You're just having to play around a little bit until you figure out the differences between the weapon that you're playing now and the weapon that you played in the last game. But you've got the mechanics pretty well under hat. Like, you know how dodging works in the game, you know how blocking works in the game. A lot of the core things are just sort of tweaked between games. They aren't actually changed all that radically. So there's a lot of adjustments that you don't have to make anymore. And the truth is, the series is just not that difficult until you get to the highest end content. Which, I mean, that's true of almost every game. And does this one feel like it started the curve just a little bit easier? Yeah, it kind of does. But then, if we look at the way Horizon World both did it, neither one of them really had any significant challenges until the post-game content. Even with World, with all the Elder Dragons, they were still roughly on par with the Apex system. Like, tempered Apexes are pretty similar to what would normally be labeled as Elder Dragons. I like it a little bit better because I feel like the tempered Apexes make it to where if they really wanted to, they could bump up the difficulty of any monster to endgame level. It wouldn't have to be justified as being an Elder Dragon. So, I think it leaves us with a more open ecosystem in the game that leaves more potential variety for endgame, which is something Monster Hunter has sorely lacked in the past. And if you've really paid any attention to some of the meta sets and whatnot, you'll realize there's only a handful of monsters that people really need to fight in the endgame to actually get their endgame gear. But I feel like in this game, that has been a wider variety than normal. Like, there's more creatures you can fight than normal. Even if it is boiling down to making Ardian weapons, you have more options than the typical one or two that let you farm up the absolute apex material. Yes, the most efficient way to do it is Arc-Tempered, or not Arc-Tempered, but Tempered Wrathel... okay, get my words together here. Tempered Arkveld, and specifically the 5-star, like, sub-variant with the 8-star quest where it has, like, the double rewards box. Yeah, That's about the best way to do it, although Zoshia, I think, comes in pretty close. And I think Mizutsune you can actually get a similar thing with now. So that's 3 options, but you can step down the difficulty a little bit and do any of the God, I keep saying arc tempered. Do any of the tempered apexes as well as tempered Gormagala and still farm up parts if you just don't like the Archveld fight or the Zoshia fight. So there's a lot of options for farming up your Ardian. And if you don't use the Ardian weapons, like my class here, the Gunlance, then, well, probably farming one of those 3 anyway, because their weapon is probably the thing that you're using instead of using the in-game, the Ardian system. But as for armor almost always narrows down to one particular set that's meta for whatever that spec is, so there's still a couple more options than normal in this one. It's not just straight up, oh yeah, this is the hardest monster, build its set, and its set takes down everything else. So I'm hoping they're actually trying to open up build variety a little bit, and that's where their sort of starting goal is here. And with every title update, they're going to introduce some new monsters, put them in at the appropriate level of difficulty, and then we'll actually have an expanding roster of things we can fight at in-game that maybe get a little bit harder each time, because they will take into account that you have better gear than the last time, or at least they normally do, and so they balance each patch to be just a little bit harder and introduce a little bit bigger challenge. So the Gamma armor sets, if they're anything like the historical ones, will more than likely take the place of the meta as far as armor goes. They may not take the place of the meta as far as the weapons go, but that's okay, because if you replace everything, there's no reason to go back and do all the old content. So you want them to provide something that's going to be enough to motivate you to do the challenge, but not replace everything. But anyway, sort of getting down the explanation for the hopeful development of the meta in this. But I do think the difficulty is in a good place. And if you really take the rose-tinted glasses off and you really think back to baseline World, there's a lot of similar problems with this that World had, but there's a lot of wider variety of solutions that can come in Wilds than what there was in World. And so I think ultimately we're going to end up with a better game than what we had with World. And that's not even talking about the Master Rank expansion, which I'm not going to pop into that just simply because what's the point? Yeah, you saw my feint there. I thought I had an opening to get a focus strike on the mouth, and it didn't work. So, anyway. What about the shift from people complaining about it being too easy to complaining about carding all the time? There's a simple reason for that. People really underestimate the effect that multiplayer has on the game. It goes one of 2 ways. Either the group you get in, if you're going in random, like you're not going in with a static group, you either destroy the monster way faster than normal, or someone in it probably should be playing offline for a little bit to learn the monster a bit better, and they card enough times to drag the group into failing the quest. Now, I'm not passing any judgment on that. I've jumped into multiplayer a little bit too early in previous fights. Hell, World and Iceborne both had those siege-style quests where you didn't have a choice. You had to learn the fight in multiplayer. And so I've had a few occasions where I've been the person that tanked the quest. Like I did it once with the Raging Brachydios because my first fight on him went bizarrely well, and I didn't really quite grip how difficult he was. I didn't realize I was in with as good of a group as I was, and we took him down like it was nothing. And then the second group I went in with, I don't know what was going on. It was just significantly harder, but I was the one that ended up being the carts that killed the quest. So everyone's done it at some point. That's not really the problem. There's not really a problem with it. It's just one of these things where people tend to assume that multiplayer is always going to be the easier route. And that's just straight up not the case. Multiplayer will either emphasize the easy fights or emphasize the hard fights. And what I mean by that is the easy fights become significantly easier and the hard fights generally become significantly harder. Because even if you're a good player, you can get caught out by these one-shot moves here and there. And the harder the fight is, the more likely you are to get one-shot, the more likely you are to end up causing a card in a multiplayer hunt. And failing the quest for a multiplayer hunt tends to leave people with an impression of things being harder than what they really are. And the reason why I say all that, if you're struggling with Zoshia or you're struggling with Tempered Mizutsune, try going in with just your Palico, not even the support hunters. I have a video that I may post later just for comparison's sake, like doing Zoshia with support hunters versus doing it with my Palico. The support hunters, they're helpful. It's actually kind of cool seeing other people fighting the quest, but there's a few things that happen. Number one, you get that increased multiplayer health pool, which means if you're not coordinated and going after specific parts, part breaks become sort of random. It may just be me, but does anyone else feel like getting part breaks in multiplayer is every bit as hard as it was in World, where it feels like they have adjusted the health for the parts up disproportionately to the rest of the monster? I know that was an issue for a while in World, that if you needed part breaks, you just didn't play multiplayer because it was so hard to actually get them in. That may have been Rise. Anyway, I know that has popped up before. I'm curious if that's the case here, because it seems like anytime I either do multiplayer, pull support hunters in, part breaks are just luck of the draw. That also could be just because of the spillover effect on people doing more core damage, so to speak, rather than part damage. And so the monster just dies before you have the opportunity to break stuff. So if you're part hunting, you're probably better off going in solo. That can be intimidating for some people. Some people get some comfort in going in multiplayer because they feel like if things aren't going well, they can just turtle up and then the team will carry them. As long as they're contributing a little bit, they're not really being a leech. They're just not being the number one contributor. But that's not really the case. The fights, I feel like, are significantly easier solo because that little Palico dude right there is a significant boon to your fight. There are a lot of fights in this game where I can tank quite a bit of damage, and just given the frequency with which he'll heal, I don't ever have to pop a pot because he'll heal me up before I ever even have the chance to. Not to mention you get one free revive with him as long as you've actually got him up to that point and you've went through and done the quests to give him his items, which you absolutely should if you're having trouble with any of these fights. He's a pretty big boon, or she, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's a NPC cat. But they significantly make the solo fights easier. I feel like a lot of the times the real difficulty comes in seeing the multiplayer fights simply because you're depending entirely on yourself for things like heals. Unless you happen to be playing with someone that has decided they're going to be an ultra support hunter, which those people are cool. You get all sorts of buffs. Typically, they make the fight just a slightly, either a little bit faster or just a little bit slower, depending on how good the other three hunters are. So, no taking away from that. That's a cool playstyle as well, where you can basically take a group that would otherwise cart and hunting horn them all the way to victory. But those are some issues that pop up when doing multiplayer versus solo. So if you've been having trouble with it and you primarily play multiplayer, just go solo for a little bit. All you got to do to get Zoshia's quest to pop up, or Mizutsune's, is go to the respective area that they spawn in, and I'm pretty sure they both spawn in Inclemency more often. I could be wrong on that. You may want to double check me on that one. I haven't taken a look at it. I'm just going based off of my play experience. And spend some points to rest. I mean, you may want to double dip possibly and do some crown hunting while you're at it. Like, keep an eye on the arena and see what monster's in there, and if it's one that you need to do some crown hunting for. But rest, when the quest pops up, save the investigation. I know there's a lot of people that go to multiplayer just because they don't have the investigation currently, but if you've been having trouble with it, really the sort of proper etiquette way of going about things is get a little bit more practice in offline. Now, that pretty well covers my thoughts on the difficulty for the game. I don't think it's in a bad place. I think it's actually in a really good place. By the way, I'm going to loop the gameplay back just a little bit so I can talk a little bit longer. I think in the long run, the game is in a healthy place. I think we're going to gradually get more and more difficult things, and I think a lot of the difficulty people are seeing is more due to doing group fights focused rather than trying stuff solo, which is fair. It's a multiplayer game, basically. So if you're really wanting to do stuff multiplayer, keep doing it multiplayer, but maybe put some practice in solo so you can get a little bit of a better idea as to whether the fight's actually hard or not. Because I'm not a top tier player by any means. Like, I'm struggling to try to get a kill in the arena below 5 minutes in order to get just the A rank banner. Now, granted, none of the weapons in the arena right now are ones that I've used a decent amount. Well, I'm getting closer with the Insect Glaive. But, you know, I'm not top tier player by any stretch of the imagination. They're not that bad. So if you're getting repeatedly stomped by them, just mix up the way that you're going about it. Like, if you've been primarily going solo, maybe go a little bit more defensive. Bring a bunch of support stuff in with you, like dusts and life powders and whatnot. And try going into a multiplayer hunt. Just focus on keeping everyone alive. Don't be as risky. Take some of the glass cannon skills off. Swap them out for a few more defensive skills. Nothing in this particular iteration of Monster Hunter requires such high attack to defeat it that you can't have some defensive skills. Now, I guess I should mention that a little bit. I've been playing mostly with largely unupgraded armor. In other words, I've started sinking some armor spheres into it because I'm suspecting that Arc Tempered Ray Down is going to probably need it to not get killed quickly by just basic attacks, because Mizu has a few hits that take you most of the way down, and I'm betting he'll hit harder than Mizu. So I've been trying to take advantage of the armor sphere quest to get a few pieces leveled up, but level up your gear, take advantage of the event quest going on, put some points into defense. Defense doesn't do a huge amount. Like, it's not going to take a fight from completely unwinnable to brain dead, but it does soften the blow enough to give you room for healing if you're having trouble with things like that. So throw in some defense on your armor. Like, swap out maybe one or two more attack oriented skills, because yeah, not every armor skill is defense focused, and not all the attack skills are just on your weapon. Some of the skills on your armor are more offensive focused, which is fine if you're doing them fine. Like, it speeds up the hunt, makes things end a little bit faster, and generally the rule of thumb in Monster Hunter is if it dies faster, it doesn't have as many opportunities to kill you. So, I mean, that is one way to look at it, but you have to live long enough to kill it. Sometimes swapping in some defensives, like a little bit of Divine Blessing, might give you that extra defensive boost that even if the fight's going to take a minute or two longer, you'll actually get to finish it. So, swap in some defensives, upgrade your defense, try playing offline if you've been mainly playing online, but nothing in this is so difficult that it's insurmountable. I'm not a top tier player. I can beat everything relatively easily, and every now and then if I'm just sort of being thoughtless, I'll have moments like that where I get my health bar beaten way down. That's largely from just not doing the absolute peak that I can, but that's fine, you don't have to. This is not one of those games where you really have to be on point the whole time or things are just not going to go your way. You can actually relax a little bit with Monster Hunter. As long as you have a good grip on how all the mechanics work for the game, pretty well good to go. So, relax and enjoy the fights. And if you do faint 3 times, just take a look at the way things are set up, try to find a few upgrades, and then try again. You'll get it eventually, and once you get it once, you can get it again. And if you're killing things with with 1 card or less, you're probably safe to go into multiplayer without having to worry about ruining other people's quests. Or, if you decide you want to be a really defensive focused player, you can go in, get everyone buffed up, throw in hits when you can, but turtle up when you need to keep healed up. May not contribute a lot attack-wise, but if you're keeping everyone else alive, they're probably not going to get all that upset with you. Anyway, I think I'm done on this. I'm going to let the fight play out again. That way you have at least one opportunity to see it without me talking over top of the whole thing. So, remember, if I can do it, so can you. Have a good night and keep fighting.
We've been given more supplies. Check your sacred's pouch. trap.
That looks like a good place to set up camp.